Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I'm your host, Joe Zollo. We are ending our breakouts and sleepers with the tight end position, as we always do. Some NFL news and notes, actually. We have some legitimate NFL news to actually talk about and discuss before we dive into these tight ends here. Again, the heaping mess between 13 to 36. There isn't any chance that one of these guys could potentially crack the top 10, not just any week, but probably potentially for the entire season, a la Jonnu Smith finishing tight end 4 last year. Let's get into it. Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I'm your host, Joe Zollo. Josh and Ryan joining us this week. Disclaimer in the beginning, this is pre-recorded, so just note that if you do leave your questions, well, we won't get to them live. We will get to them at some point. I don't know if one of you plan on being in the chat at some point, but we will always get to them at some point.
I might be able to be in the chat tonight.
Great. Fantastic. If we don't get to it immediately, we will get to it later. Just want to put that disclaimer out there. If you drop a question and we don't answer it, we're not here. So that's why the sunlight here should be a dead giveaway that it's not 9 p.m. Eastern time. But just want to make sure that that's out there. Some news and notes, gentlemen.
Yeah, that's the first for this series.
Let's start with the biggest one. J.K. Dobbins signed with J.K. Dobbins did sign with Denver, but Aaron Rodgers is officially a Steelers quarterback after probably signing his contract verbally back in March.
Yeah.
But had to wait until June so nobody yelled at him for not showing up to all these things, and because it was best for his soul. But then he got married, and then he's here now. So the Steelers are locked into another 9-8 season.
I just think it's hilarious that for somebody that loves having all of their business in the spotlight, he kept this marriage under wraps.
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you.
I found out shock to me.
I found out Aaron Rodgers got married 30 seconds ago when Joe said he got married. I didn't catch any of this news. So, yes.
I saw the picture floating around on Tuesday where he's like gripping the football and you see like the little wedding ring. So like everybody's blowing it out of proportion. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Because I care. Awesome.
I feel so bad for her. Him, could be him. Who knows? Feels so bad for that person.
I just know Shailene Woodley described getting out of that relationship as like getting out of like a hostage situation.
Correct. So A-Rod is a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah.
The funniest thing that I heard this morning watching Get Up as they were talking about this, Adam Schefter had said they now have their quarterback for this season to put them in contention, and it sets them up in 2026 as the draft is in Pittsburgh to draft a quarterback. I'm like, Adam, you can't draft a quarterback at 20. You can't draft a quarterback at 20.
Not a good one anyway.
Exactly.
And they're never going to trade up.
Exactly. So if you wanted to set yourself up for drafting a quarterback, you should have started Mason Rudolph. Like that's what you should have.
I am curious, Ryan, when this signing came through and you redid your projections, where did Rodgers fit? Or
I actually redid. I did my original projections as if Rodgers was there. The second Russell Wilson signed with the Giants, I knew Aaron Rodgers was going to the Steelers.
Immediately.
So, yeah.
Where did he end up for you?
Oh, not good. QB 29, I believe. So,
shit. So I remember when I wrote the QB tiers article, and if you remember, I put a little section at the bottom like, hey, I'm only doing this off my projections right now. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a team.
Yeah.
Once he signs with Pittsburgh, if he signs with Pittsburgh, this is where he's going to slot in. And I remember writing the words QB 24.
Yeah.
I did my projections dead ass right at QB 24.
The fact of the matter is, no matter what you think about Rodgers, this is still an Arthur Smith offense. No matter what you think about an Arthur Smith offense, this is still the Aaron Rodgers we saw the last 2 seasons. He is not a top 20 quarterback, plain and simple. Now,
he did throw 25 touchdowns last year.
So I was going to say, there's some very flawed stat floating around about how Aaron Rodgers threw the same amount of touchdowns as Patrick Mahomes in more touchdowns than Jalen Hurts. The Jalen Hurts is complete bullshit because you have to count the 14 rushing touchdowns. And yes, Rodgers did beat Mahomes by 2 touchdowns, and Rodgers was the QB 15 last year. The fact,
but can we sit here and say Mahomes had a good season last year?
Exactly.
Like, objectively, he had a bad season.
That's the thing is all we did last season was talk about how Patrick Mahomes is not a top tier fantasy quarterback anymore. That's not the comp you want to make. And I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but yes, Rodgers was the QB 15. And yes, I just said there's no way he's a top 20 quarterback. The other thing is the QBs from 14 to 24 all score the same amount of points anyway. So if you want Aaron Rodgers, go get him. Don't expect big things.
I will say this did bump up DK Metcalf quite a bit.
100%. That was the last point.
DK ended up as the top 15 wide receiver for me, and I was like, fuck, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, he's not that high for me.
What though? He's ultimately going to have a similar target share to what George Pickens had last year.
100%.
He's going to have a similar yards per reception. The difference is DK Metcalf knows how to score touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be the big disparity between Pickens last year and DK this year.
Well, if you look, Garrett Wilson, 154 targets, 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns. Why isn't that DK stat line? So
that should be a bare minimum for DK this year.
Yeah, you're convincing me I'm under projecting DK Metcalf. I will go back to the Steelers. It's not going to help Aaron Rodgers, but it's going to help DK Metcalf. So
yeah, the biggest thing there is just who's going to be the second target, because they really, like, I know they're talking up Roman Wilson. Dude played 5 snaps last year. Like, I'm not ready to hop.
Well, yeah, I think Wilson slots in on the outside. I think Calvin Austin is probably the slot wide receiver, and Calvin Austin had some fun games last year. Little guy, he's of the Wan'Dale Robinson mold. Yeah, so
but he's fast,
very fast.
Yeah. I think this plays right into Pat Freiermuth having a top 10 season, honestly. Like, I didn't assess because they don't really have anybody else.
But I mean,
Arthur Smith will target tight ends. I mean,
I say let's save that for
Arthur Smith will target tight ends. Will the quarterback target tight ends?
If he's got nobody else to throw to.
I do have Roman Wilson, so I would love Roman Wilson to have a nice season. He's on my
I traded him last year for a second-round pick in the only dynasty league I had him. I said, insane. I will take that.
I would love Roman Wilson to have a good season. We'll get into, because that does tie into Freiermuth, and I want to get into that and how Aaron Rodgers refuses to throw to tight ends. So we'll get to that later. A couple of things I said. Dobbins signs with Denver. This hurts RJ Harvey a little bit.
It really doesn't.
It doesn't, though.
No.
Like, the only thing it does
is more about the back end depth. It's Audric Estime not doing anything last year. It's Jaleel McLaughlin averaging less than 6 yards per reception. That's what this is all about. But when you look at, like, breakaway runs, Dobbins was actually top 5 in the NFL in big plays at the running back position. So for somebody coming off of as many injuries as he did, that's not bad, honestly. And Denver does have a top 3, top 5 run blocking offensive line. So I think, and again, we've seen Sean Payton do this. Like, everybody was hyping up RJ Harvey like he was going to be some workhorse. That's not a Sean Payton offense. He's always had a 1A and a 1B, always. So if you look at Harvey as a 1A or 1B, you look at Dobbins as the other piece of that. That's ultimately what this is. And if Dobbins does get hurt, then you break glass in case of emergency with Estime and McLaughlin.
We talked about this in the Football Guys chat yesterday, and I am blanking on his name right now, and I apologize. But one of our main podcast guys is actually a Denver area reporter, and he said Dobbins is being brought in to be the 1A. Harvey will be the 1B. So not that anybody.
Cecil?
Yes, Cecil. Thank you so much. I was like, God, I'm blanking on the name. So Dobbins 1A, Harvey 1B. I'm the only person in the world who before this was excited for Jaleel McLaughlin. He is dead. But I think to Josh's point, I started digging into their games, and Dobbins is just not a pass catcher. And while Harvey didn't show a ton of that in college, he can do it.
Juice for it.
And Bo Nix was already talking that aspect of his game up from the rookie camps. So I do believe Harvey is likely to be the pass catcher a la Alvin Kamara. There's probably still a lot of value to RJ Harvey in this offense.
I just think it's really weird that you wait until June 10th to sign your 1A running back. You know what I mean? Like, that's what doesn't make sense to me. So, like,
that means they also probably
a little on the 1A.
Or
I still think he's probably gonna. I can't even remember how many carries I gave him.
Or do you pump the brakes on RJ Harvey because
Hey.
they saw enough and were like, fuck, we need J.K. Dobbins. Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, this is fun and all, but we're talking about the fucking Denver Broncos backfield in June,
That's fair too.
Yeah, right.
and it's a Sean Payton offense. So
Yeah. I
Jaleel
gave Dobbins
McLaughlin will be
113
relevant
carries.
for 3 weeks,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Audric Esme will be relevant for 2 weeks because this is a Sean Payton
Yeah.
offense.
Yeah.
So
Well,
all you
and,
need
and
to
Dobbins
know-
has not shown the ability to stay healthy all season.
Yeah, that's true. too.
Let's just be real here. So
Yeah. So and from one super healthy old running back to another, Nick Chubb has signed with the Houston Texans. Thankfully, he should still be in the league. So now you got Mixon and Nick Chubb.
Yeah, this is the one, Josh, where I have no idea how to project this backfield. I'm still giving a lot of carries to Joe Mixon, but a healthy Nick Chubb is a better running back than Joe Mixon, plain and simple. I just don't know where either of them stands at this point in their careers.
A healthy Nick Chubb is the
That's-
best pure runner behind Derrick Henry.
yeah, I still have Mixon at 248 carries. As of right now, I only gave Chubb like 78. And a lot of that, honestly, is I don't know how healthy he is because he's struggled the last 2 seasons. He's older, obviously. But that Houston offensive line is straight dog shit. Like, they did not do anything to get better. Quite frankly, they got worse. They traded their best offensive lineman. So, like, I don't really see this as anything more than, all right, you're going to spell Joe Mixon and you don't have any faith in Dameon Pierce because he hasn't done anything since his rookie season.
Dameon Pierce
still
is
there.
Yeah, and
He's
Woody
still
Marks,
alive?
quite honestly, is better as a pass catcher. So, like, I kind of want to see OTA shake out before anything, but that's
Well,
kind of where I have it. At the
It
moment.
seems likely Dameon Pierce gets released because they're going to keep Dario Ngumbuale because he can play special teams. So,
So
well,
can
and Pearson's
so
a
they
kick
use
returner
Pierce
for
as a
them
returner.
too. So
oh, that's such a good point.
So
I was
unless-
thinking
that's
more.
what they, like that fourth running back spot is going to be either Pierce or Ogunbowale. Like,
Yeah,
that's really what
You're
it's gonna boil
talking.
down.
Nick Caserio kept Matthew Slater as a 6th receiver, and Brandon Bolden as a 4th running back
Yeah.
all the time. So they're gonna keep. They're not going to be used. Wale will be used in the pass game. He's a very good pass catcher. Pierce will not be used outside of special teams and in emergency situations.
So, do you think they'll go 5 running backs, Joe?
Who's the 5th? What am I missing?
Woody Marks, Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, and then the 2 special teams guys.
The fuck is Woody Marks?
The
He was their
rookie they
4th round
drafted
pick
out of
this
USC this year, 4th round pick.
Sure, why not? I don't like it's. Sure, whatever. He's a 4th round pick. He doesn't
We've
matter
already
to me.
spent way too much time on these
Yeah,
backfields.
we've talked about Woody Marks before we talked about Tucker Kraft, and that's the hell is Woody Marks. Okay, strategy talk. I don't want to spend too much time on this because this is a pretty straightforward strategy.
Yeah,
So
I'll jump in real quick on
ahead.
this because I'm looked at as this person who is the advocate for streaming, and I really am. But these 2 chuckleheads draft with me, and they know if Trey McBride or Brock Bowers are there in the first 2 rounds, I take them. So if there is elite, if elite exists, I will pay up for elite. But this is where I differ. If I don't get elite, I don't draft a tight end because
same.
I will be able to get one in the last rounder and waivers afterward. I don't need to force the pick in the middle of the draft. It's not who I am as a person.
Yeah, I just think it's hilarious that we always talk about, positional advantage. Like when there's that 1, maybe 2 tight ends that bust out and that, we just kind of expect carbon copy the following seasons. And it never seems to come to fruition. So I want to offer this like line of caution really quick because I know right now Brock Bowers and Trey McBride are kind of looked at as that positional advantage right now at the tight end position. They're 2 young guys, prime of their careers, elite target shares and everything else when it comes to their respective offenses. Only one of them has any semblance of a change in atmosphere, and that's Brock Bowers. And that, to me, is the issue with that positional advantage because when you're talking about it, now you have to account for how is the new offensive coordinator going to target Brock Bowers? How is the quarterback going to target Brock Bowers?
A lot.
Like, I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I'm not. But
No, I know.
it still plays into it, right?
It does, yeah.
With Trey McBride, literally everything is the same. Same offensive coordinator, same quarterback,
Same bad quarterback,
and they
but-
added no pieces around him.
Yeah.
To
What
get
do you mean?
no, like
Marvin
it's,
Harrison Jr. 's his second year.
he was there last year
Step.
though. That's
He
what I'm
was take
saying.
a big
He was
step
there
though.
last
He's gonna take a big step.
And he can still take a step and it not really hurt Trey McBride is what I'm getting at, because Michael Wilson's not anything, and I can't even name their wide receiver.
Mr. Sophia Smith.
Greg Dortch.
Sure.
Greg Dortch, dog.
Again, no, to Josh's point, you may have been going here, Josh, and I'll just take over for you here. Trey McBride is 10 to 15 picks cheaper.
That's what I'm saying. Like, to me, he might be the actual positional advantage this year.
He's currently 7 picks cheaper.
Oh, okay. I'm best ball drafts in practice. Trey McBride is going 10 to 15 picks later. Just throwing that out there. So.
Okay. According to the underdog, what I'm looking at, 2-2 is Bowers, 2-9 is McBride. So they're the same round.
Okay.
So if you wanted a second round tight end, it's that. And then the drop off is George Kittle 3 rounds later in round 5. So here's what for the general person. If you don't want to think about the tight end position, draft one in the second round.
Yep.
If you are okay with picking and choosing a tight end and kicking yourself when you pick the wrong one, but you're going to be active and use the waiver wire, wait.
Yeah.
There's your rule on tight ends.
And follow our show, because if you're going to be active and use the waiver wire, it's what I do.
Ryan's pretty smart.
All season long.
Yeah.
What'd you build last year? The tight end 2?
Tight end 2, just by streaming. So
it was Brock Bowers, Ryan Stream of the Week, Trey McBride. That was or George Kittle, whoever finished 2.
No, it was McBride. Yeah.
Okay. So that's again, that's why a lot of us advocate for wait on tight end, because there's no reason. But yeah, if you are I don't want to have to think about this every week, fine. Punt on the second running back or a top tier receiver or something 100%. Like that. Like Ryan and I will always tell you, you can find a wide receiver 1 in the 4th and 5th round. So you don't like that. That's fine. That's fine. You can go running back.
The difference between Joe and I's draft strategy: Joe is 3 running backs. I'm usually running back, tight end, running back, and then we're looking for our wide receiver 1 in the 4th. So,
Yep. So I would say that's the overall theme: is set it and forget it, or set it and stress.
Yeah.
So that there's
a lot of stress. It's fun.
Yeah. I mean, you know what you're getting, Brock Bowers, every single week. You throw Brent Strange in the lineup.
Shit gets interesting
after a Brian Thomas Jr. Rolled ankle. You're like, oh no, we don't. What's going to happen this week?
I sure hope that weird bearded guy is right about this.
Exactly. So again, the rankings that we use here as we get into these is Underdog. If you want to get on Underdog, use promo code WOFF, free pick, first time deposit match up to 1,000. If you want to drop 1,000 on some tight ends, that's a tough one. I would recommend using the best guys, and don't stream your Underdog gambling with your tight ends. Please bet on Bowers and McBride and things like that.
We've actually been discussing that a lot. We don't talk about the Discord a lot on this show, but join the Club Fantasy Discord. We've been talking about that a lot in the Discord, about how when you're building these best ball teams, grabbing one of Bowers or McBride and then only having to grab one tight end later feels so much cleaner than these like weird 3 tight end builds you'll see. So there's a method to that madness.
So getting into the it says wide receivers 13 through 20. I imagine that's
I tried to clean all those up for Josh. I clearly missed one. So
this guy tight ends 13 through 20. So these are going to be guys you will most likely find in double-digit rounds, if not potentially undrafted. So here we go. Tucker Kraft at 13. Isaiah Likely, Dalton Kincaid. What a drop from heaven Dalton Kincaid had. Was he tight end 5 last year, I think, going into the season?
Yeah.
He was my tight end 2 heading into the season. That went. So, yeah.
Whoa.
I'll own that one.
That's tough. Jake Ferguson at 16, Dallas Goedert, Kyle Pitts, Brenton Strange, and Cole Kmet rounds out the top 20. So I see that you both agree on Tucker Kraft, and I see that Ryan also picked another person that we won't talk about, because why are we projecting Kyle Pitts inside the top 10 again?
It's best chance to finish there, and Kraft and Pitts are my 2 guys from this grouping that are closest to finishing there. I actually don't have either one of them in the top. Well, no, I have Kraft at 10. My apologies.
I actually have both in my top 12.
So. Okay.
I do as well.
Kraft is fine. Why do we continue
Joe,
to
I think
believe in this wide receiver converted tight end because of his size.
Well, stop though, because I think this kind of speaks to what you want to say anyway. Is my tight end 12 is so bad that it is Kyle Pitts, and I'm not going to sit here and like destroy Kyle Pitts. Obviously, he hasn't lived up to expectations, but he is the second wide receiver in his offense. I mean, there's him and Mooney. He brings something to the table other tight ends don't. He's just never going to be the picture we painted 4 years ago. And so again, I have him as my tight end 12. He's not a guy I'm going in and targeting. And the biggest thing that Josh's show sheet opened my eyes to is how much more I like the next group of tight ends versus this group. I think this group is filled with landmines in a danger zone, whereas the next group, and let me be perfectly clear, the next group in a redraft league is free. Nobody is drafting the tight end 24 in a redraft league. So these are the guys. This is why I said, if I don't get Bowers or McBride, I'm not drafting a tight end. And that holds even more so this year. So I'm not going to like waste an entire segment here defending Kyle Pitts. The fact of the matter is this, it goes back to the Andrew Cooper adage. Andrew Cooper gets quoted on Club Fantasy more than anybody else. You want a guy who is the first or second option in their offense. And I know this is a very pro Darnell Mooney show, but Kyle Pitts is still a big part of that offense.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the case he's maybe the third target, though. Like, Darnell Mooney is going to be up there. He had over 100 targets last year, I believe. He was that close to 1,000 yards. With Kyle Pitts, there's a lot of empty targets. I mean, he stats out as my tight end 11, but in all the games last year with Michael Penix, he only averaged 7 points per game.
I see. I did not dig that far in. That's really good.
It's not even like he's a big time part of it, but I think the biggest reasons why you want to kind of like, you know, aside from the fact he was a former 4th overall pick, he's been a contentious topic of conversation for 4 seasons. This is a contract year. At the end of the day, if he's not going to do it this year, Kyle Pitts is not going to do it, period. Right.
Also,
but I mean, if Josh Oliver can get a 3-year, $23.75 million extension, what are we paying Kyle Pitts on a 70 target season where he finishes as tight end 15 in fantasy? Let's be honest here.
Kyle Pitts is going to be rich no matter what happens. I will throw this out there.
I mean, exactly.
If you like playing with numbers, in year 1, Kyle Pitts, 1 touchdown. In year 2, 2 touchdowns. Year 3, year 4, 5 touchdowns.
He's up 5 TDs this year. All right. That right there should get him in the top 12.
It should have been 3 touchdowns because Winfield knocked that ball up, but they couldn't overturn it because there wasn't a good angle. I'm the biggest contract year guy on.
You are,
this
Joe.
show.
I was wondering if that was going to win you over.
I'm the biggest. No, that's going to win me over. No, I have seen who Kyle Pitts is. Here's my issue. Before we get into Tucker Kraft, because I do like Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, I'll let Josh have the Tucker Kraft stuff.
I enjoy Tucker Kraft. My issue with Pitts is they run him like a wide receiver.
I was going to say highest yards per reception out of tight ends almost every year.
And here's the problem.
Close last year.
In college, if you ran Kyle Pitts wide or ran him as a receiver, yeah, that's a mismatch because they're college corners. If you run Kyle Pitts outside against an NFL DB, and I am noted that NFL DBs have heavily declined, a lot of it due to rule changes, a lot of it due to, I just think DBs have gotten a little soft.
Because of rule changes, probably.
Because of rule changes. It all stems from the rule changes. But DBs, Kyle Pitts doesn't have blazing speed. Kyle Pitts isn't a great route runner. At the end of the day,
he ran a 4.40, which is really fast for a tight end.
But it
looked very slow, though. I'm not gonna lie.
But that's slow on.
But that's what I was gonna say. That's Joe's point. He is fast for a tight end.
Yeah.
When you're going up against
for
corners,
a wide receiver is slow.
Yeah. When you're going
that's
up
what we were
against
talking
corners.
about a few weeks back with Elijah Arroyo. Like he's, with Seattle thinking of playing him like an X. Like that doesn't make any sense when he ran a 4.740.
Yeah. Well, let's be real too. Does Kyle Pitts look like he runs a 4.4 on the field?
No, he doesn't.
No, it looks like he's running 4.6, 4.7. So my point being is, and you look at as an athletic freak, let's put Bowers in because he's the one and Pitts next to each other. Pitts is a million times more athletic than Brock Bowers.
So I made this joke. I don't even want to call it a joke. When I watched Brock Bowers' college film, because again, I had to take in Brock Bowers. I don't watch college football. My immediate thing, Joe, was I go, God, he looks like a very slow wide receiver. So you're absolutely right. Pitts looks.
But where do they line him up?
But it works for Bowers exactly.
And that's the point. And he's a great route runner, knows how to use his body. Kyle Pitts is a slow wide receiver, listed at the tight end. Yeah, listed at the tight end position, playing wide receiver.
And he only played 20.5% of his snaps out wide.
So, but that's the thing is, but when they're doing that, they're using they're passing
their
football.
Target. He had 16 contested catches last year and only caught 4 of them. That is not good
for his size. That's crazy. So if you told me that Kyle Pitts would run 75% of his routes in line or in the slot, which puts him matched up against either a nickel corner, which is a size mismatch hell, a safety, because safeties are slow, or a linebacker, because they're slow. That's where you get these. Travis Kelce's not lining up wide. Even in his top-tier seasons, he's not lining up wide. You want to know why? Travis Kelce runs a 4.8, and he is not cooking an NFL corner, but he's going to destroy the safety or the slot corner. So that's what they need to do with Pitts, but we all know they're not going to do that. So if you told me Pitts lines up in line or in the slot, fucking fine. You want to know why Tucker Kraft is so good? Because he lines up in line or in the slot. Tucker Kraft is the whitest man on planet Earth. He is so unathletic, right? Again, I say unathletic. This man could bench press probably 500 pounds and have a 40-inch vertical.
He could bench press the show.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
For an NFL tight end, he's not that athletic. Like for an NFL player, he's just not that athletic if you're looking at it measurables comparably. But he uses his body properly. They run him in the spot where he should. Oh, and his quarterback looks at him to throw the football, Josh. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at all the numbers, like where he stacks up amongst other tight ends. He led all tight ends last year in yards after the catch per reception at 9.3. The next closest was 7.8, and it was Kylan Branson.
That's wild.
He is, he racks up the yak. His 14.1 yards per reception was tied for the second most in the NFL. The only player better was George Kittle at 14.2. For reference, Ryan, Kyle Pitts was 12.8, so he was 6th overall. I thought when you initially said that, I was thinking yards per route run, and I was like, wait a second. No, he's got like 1.3 on that.
I just know, as someone who projects these tight ends, the fact that Kyle Pitts is over 12 yards per catch in every one of his seasons, that is an outlier at this position.
100% it is, and that just tells you he's not getting enough targets.
Yeah,
they're not using him the way that they should be using him. He was tied for 4th among tight ends, Tucker Kraft, in touchdowns at 7. But what I found really interesting, he's all these accolades. You look at the top 12 wide receivers in total in receiving yards. He had the 4th fewest routes run. So, like, he's a big play threat at the tight end position. Mm-hmm. And he saw only 70 targets. He was 4th on this team in targets last year because Matt LaFleur wants to do a flavor of the week when it comes to distributing targets.
Sean Payton.
But this is what I find really interesting because I talked about this last year when I was trying to, project Josh Jacobs in this Green Bay offense. In 2023, Green Bay and Matt LaFleur ran the 3rd most 12 personnel. Take a guess what that was last year.
27th.
15th. They went way down.
Oh, I would have went the other way.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They went from 3rd most 12 personnel to 15. And they jumped from 20th most 11 personnel, which is 3 wide with only 1 wide receiver, to 13. So they're basically getting to a point where they're trying to spread the offense out more, which is giving Tucker Kraft more opportunities. And they're running Josh Jacobs out of non-traditional running sets.
Yeah, that story makes sense because 2 years ago they were trying to figure out who the winner of Kraft and Musgrave was, and now it's very clear Kraft is the winner. So
But this is what I like because now we know who these wide receivers are. They all suck. They're all mid. They're just bleh.
Okay, I was going to say, I'll give you mid. I will not allow you to say Jaden Reed sucks.
But that's agreed. I do like Jaden Reed. Yeah, he actually led the team in receiving yards last year.
Pause. As a receiver, meh. As a weapon, good.
As a weapon, yes, he's good. I agree.
Not a good receiver.
If they're going to keep this trend where they play more 11 personnel, drafting Jaden Reed is a good thing. Yep. Investing in Tucker Kraft at his current prices is going to win you leagues.
Yeah.
He had 7 games just last year where he had over 10 points and was the overall wide receiver 1 in 2 of those weeks. If by drafting Matthew Golden, you have Jaden Reed in the slot, and then you have some combination of Romeo Doubs, Wicks, Christian Watson, and that's your weapons. Tucker Kraft is going to be the second highest targeted player on this offense. Yeah. And that's what we look for when we're talking about sleepers and breakouts at the tight end position. They need to be first or second on their team in targets.
And don't forget, go ahead. Well, I was going to say, don't forget Joel Wirth is of the mind that Romeo Doubs might not even make this team. There was a lot.
And there's the other side of it.
So the one possession receiver.
Yeah.
Because then if you put Dontavian Wicks on the outside,
it's Tucker Kraft show.
It's a Tucker Kraft show. He had over 70% catch percentage last year.
Yeah. Did you mention his yards per reception?
Yeah, 14.1 Tucker Kraft. Yep.
Did you mention where he finished amongst tight ends?
10th. That was last year. He was
10th no. In yards per reception.
Yeah, that was what Josh started off by saying.
Yeah,
first.
Okay. I'm just making sure. Yeah, because he was 7th in overall yardage, and he would have been 6th if he had 10 less catches than Laporta, who had 20 more yards than him.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah,
he finished 10th in total points among the tight ends and 14th in points per game. That is exponentially going up. He enters this as of right now. He is my tight end 6 heading into the season.
He's the only guy in this group of 13 to 20 that even remotely makes sense to draft.
Yeah, I saw Josh had Kraft, and I said Kraft is the one I also agree with. He is inside of my top 10. He's my I actually did some adjustments while we were talking here, and he's my tight end 8. But yeah, Pitts was just me making an argument, making sure we had enough to talk about in this segment. So.
And the one caveat for Brenton Strange is if one of the receivers gets hurt,
to the moon.
Yeah, I honestly like looking at this list
every week.
I think Isaiah Likely is getting overdrafted.
Yep,
extremely.
The only way that he ends up finishing that high is if Zay Flowers misses a large chunk of games, if Rashad Bateman coming off a career season misses a chunk of games, if Mark Andrews falls off a fucking cliff.
Yeah,
because all those guys are higher than Likely in the pecking order for targets.
Well, let's talk.
They don't throw a ton.
I can make an argument for everyone in this section to be in this section except for one person.
Cole Kmet.
How in the world is Cole Kmet being drafted? Full stop. This team just spent a first-round pick on a tight end. Cole Kmet is done, folks. Cooked. D-U-N. Cole Kmet.
Didn't they trade up for him? Or they stayed put? No, they stayed put.
10.
No. They were talking about Indianapolis potentially trading up for Tyler Warren. That's what I was thinking of. Sorry. Yeah. Real quick on Isaiah Likely. He had the big first week. 9 catches, 111 yards, 1 touchdown. Do you know how many times
everybody blew their fab on him?
Yep.
I can attest.
My home league, 100% of fab was spent on Isaiah Likely week 1.
Do you know how many times he had more than 5 receptions the rest of the season?
Twice?
I think once.
Oh, Jesus.
He had 5 more than. That's why I said that. He had 5 receptions once. It was 5 for 38 and 1 touchdown against Philadelphia. Outside of that, he had nothing. He had 3 catches, 2 catches, 1 catch, no catches.
In statistically, outside of touchdowns, the worst year of Mark Andrews' career, Isaiah Likely still did not pop. So
yeah,
that's
what I'm saying. Like Likely, much like Brenton Strange, these are guys that you need people in the pecking order ahead of them to get hurt and miss a large chunk of games. That's the only way that they're really going to take that next step.
Yeah. All right, now let's get to the guys that are going to be drafted by us and will be on Ryan's Stream of the Week list all the time.
Yeah.
Tight ends 21 through 36. This is very interesting, some of the names on here, because some of them finished inside the top 12 last year.
Yeah.
Insane.
People projecting upside. It's what happens.
Well, tight end 7 last year, tight end 21 this year, Zach Ertz. Cade Otton, makes sense. Hunter Henry, Pat Freiermuth, Mike Gesicki, Harold Fannin Jr., Dalton Schultz, Jatavian Sanders, Chickasimo Okonkwo, Juwan Johnson, Mason Taylor, Tyler Higbee, Theo Johnson, Tyler Conklin, Noah Gray, and Elijah Arroyo round out at number 36.
Yeah.
So from this group, Zach Ertz, Hunter Henry, Pat Freiermuth all finished inside the top 12 last year.
Yeah, it's wild. And
now,
two of them are in better situations than they were last year, and the other one, Zach Ertz, is in the exact same situation he was in.
I was going to say,
year.
I disagree with that because he has a better wide receiver.
Debo Samuel, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Zach Ertz, you can make a case for a step back. Plus, he's like 47 years old at this point.
I was about to say, the step back for me is age with Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
We'll talk Freiermuth. Hunter Henry's in a better offense that utilizes the tight end.
And might be the wide receiver one.
Like, guys, do we not remember that Josh McDaniels had Rob Gronkowski for a long freaking time? And I'm not saying Henry's the same guy, but they can do that. They run routes and catch balls very well. Like
Hunter Henry had his best statistical season in 2020
under Josh McDaniels.
With Josh McDaniels, yeah.
Remember that? Remember that stretch? He had like 2 touchdowns a game for 4 weeks. That was Josh McDaniels. And you want to know who his quarterback was? McCorkle Jones. Not even Drake May. Not even a good one. It wasn't even Brady. It was Mac Jones was his quarterback. Why is he this low?
Yeah, it's
realistically, because
I love that everybody's talking up a Drake May breakout, and yet Stephon Diggs is wide receiver 47. Hunter Henry is the tight end 24. It's like, I get it. Like, I think that Caleb Williams is going to have a really good season, but it may not necessarily equate to like all of his weapons being top 10 because there's just so many of them, right? There's not a lot of weapons here with New England. So if Drake May is going to have this really good season, Hunter Henry, Stephon Diggs, maybe a Kyle Williams, somebody is going to take that next step up.
Well, and then you have Drake May, who is likely to have this good season. And who is he used to targeting? Hunter Henry was targeted 97 times last year.
In a bad offense.
Yeah.
Josh
it's unbelievable to me that he's going.
Josh McDaniels' scheme literally is built around the tight end. The whole scheme is built around 2 tight ends, not even just one. Yeah. Austin Hooper is going to see a lot of time on Ryan's Stream of the Week list because Austin Hooper is going to have multiple games where he's available. And Austin Hooper looked good towards the end of last season. It is, I am not a Hunter Henry apologist. I'm not the biggest Hunter Henry fan on planet Earth. I am a fan of a tight end when Josh McDaniels is the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, it's fair.
Don't look at Josh McDaniels when he's a head coach. He sucks. Look at Josh McDaniels when he's an offensive coordinator. Because if you don't think he's one of the best offensive coordinators of his generation, you are sorely mistaken.
He has a few Super Bowl rings to show you to prove
just
you're
a
wrong.
few. Just a few. And yes, he had Tom, but there were like at points in times like that scheme was insane. So 3-1.
I was going to say, wasn't he the OC when Brady went down and Matt Castle was the quarterback?
11-5. They missed the playoffs somehow. 11-5 with Matt Castle. 3-1 with Jacoby Brissett and Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
And then Mac Jones.
And freaking Mac Jones, the only year he's ever looked good. If you don't think Josh McDaniels is a good OC, I have news for you, and you need to watch the Patriots.
Hunter Henry down here is Henry is the reason. Hunter Henry and Pat Freiermuth, who we'll talk about in a second, are the reason why I said if I don't get these guys, I'll wait. And I can probably not take one of them. One of them is likely to get drafted in the 14th round, especially if I'm in a draft with Joe. The other one is probably still there for me. So.
Listen, the odds of me getting Hunter Henry in all the leagues I play with Patriots fans in, super low.
Yeah.
So
in every other league,
other league, Hunter Henry will be my tight end because he's free at that point. One guy that is free currently that was finished the highest of all these tight ends. Excuse me, Zach Ertz was higher than him at 7. Muth was 8. I know you guys feel it's better, but when we talked about this last year, when does his now current quarterback ever target the tight end on a consistent basis?
When he has to.
I was just going to say when he has to.
I mean, that's really, look at Jermichael Finley. Like,
well, I mean, let's look at it this way. Pratt Freiermuth, 78 targets last year. Tyler Conklin, 72 targets last year. Muth was just more efficient. Conklin only caught 51 balls. Muth caught 65. 83% of his targets. I'm just quickly glancing. Cole Kmet is the only tight end in the top 20 with a higher catch rate than Pat Freiermuth. Cole Kmet did it on 55 catches. A little bit easier to have a high, or 55 targets. A little bit easier to have a high reception rate there. But Freiermuth he's your dead center tight end. 10 yards per catch, 5 to 7 touchdowns. He doesn't need to set the world on fire with Aaron Rodgers in order to still be a top 10 fantasy option. He just needs to do what he did last year. And if Russell Wilson and Justin Fields can hit him 83% of the time, I do not like Aaron Rodgers. He's more accurate than Russell Wilson and Justin Fields.
A lot more. Yeah, I think with Freiermuth, it's like you have these classifications of tight ends, right? Like you have the Bowers, the Kittles, the McBrides, the guys that you know exactly what you're getting every week, and it's high upside, high floor, right? Then you have that, like, what we call the tight end dead zone, where people expect them to do well, but something is going to happen where they're either going to fall backwards or they're going to make a leap up, right? And then you have this, like, kind of middle range where the floors are really kind of It's like 7, 8, 9 fantasy points per game. It's nothing special. Every once in a while, you'll get those spike weeks. But more often than not, they're a workaround in your lineups. Guys like Hunter Henry, Pat Freiermuth, Jake Ferguson, Dalton Schultz, Zach Ertz, that is the world they live in. They're not anything exciting. They're pretty damn boring. But when they spike, it's like, oh, great. But then their bad weeks are like, I got 7 points. I'll take it. That is Pat Freiermuth. And now he's going to have higher touchdown upside because Aaron Rodgers actually knows how to throw touchdowns.
I mean, he scored 7 last year. That's so good for tight ends. I don't even need.
And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Because there's nobody else in that offense. You cannot convince me Roman Wilson is going to be the second target in this offense.
Yeah.
My history of drafting dynasty wide receivers, their second year is actually the breakout year. No, the breakout.
If that's the case,
DJ
you're expecting.
Chark.
I was going to say that's your best case scenario is that Roman Wilson, after playing 5 snaps last year, becomes DJ Chark.
Tell me I'm wrong.
And they're two completely different wide receivers.
Well,
and the long correlation there, Joe, is that you drafted him, not buying.
Exactly.
Yeah, is that not enough correlation for you?
Statistically, that means they're the exact same player.
Statistically, they're the exact same player. I don't see a flaw with this logic whatsoever. Freiermuth is not going to blow anybody off the.
No,
he's just
it's the most boring tight end 10 finish you're ever going to get.
It is
5 targets every week, catches 4 of them every week, catches a touchdown every other week.
It's drafting Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, 100%.
Is he going to blow you out of the water? Might have a couple weeks.
Yeah,
but for the most part, the dude is just consistently the QB9 every single week.
Now, Austin, during our DFS shows last year, Austin noticed the trend where like Freiermuth went 5 consecutive weeks with exactly 5 targets. And then we were finding like bets out there where like Pat Freiermuth over 2.5 catches. And Austin's like, this is printing money at this point. So
my thing with Freiermuth is Rodgers more accurate than Russ and Fields? Definitely Fields. I'm not going to, at this point in his career, I'm not going to put him there with Russ. I'm not going to put him there at this point in his career. There has been one quarterback in NFL history that has played well after turning 40. He's the greatest of all time. There's one guy that has played well after turning 40. What has Aaron Rodgers realistically shown us to even say that he's I even feel like half the guy he was is generous, because there are times where the greats will always show it. Aaron Rodgers, there were times and drives last year where he would drop the most ridiculous of passes right in the bucket where you would say, holy hell, that's Aaron Rodgers. But 70% of the time, you're looking like, this guy can't move. He's having a hard time reading a defense.
Certainly a statue. No denying that.
His arm strength isn't there. Yes, his Jets offensive line wasn't great last year. You're going to sit here and tell me Pittsburgh's is any better? So
yeah, they're basically the same, honestly. I think the biggest difference really, it's just, I get it, at 41 years old, Aaron Rodgers, it's the Aaron Rodgers offense, right? Let's just look at Nathaniel Hackett, play caller, Arthur Smith, play caller, right? Arthur Smith is head and shoulders above that.
Yeah.
That to me makes a big difference when you're trying to project Aaron Rodgers.
You're comparing most compassionate dictator at that point. Like that's
No, I mean they're both bad head coaches, but one's actually a good offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
we can sit here and bash on Arthur Smith because he doesn't give the guy that we want him to give the football to 350 times, right?
Move?
That's fine, whatever. But he has a system, and that system works. He's going to give Caleb Johnson probably 250 touches. He's going to target DK Metcalf probably close to 28% of the time. We know exactly what the constants are.
And he's going to target Roman Wilson the other 20% of the time. So
no, there's never been a second wide receiver in an Arthur Smith system that's ever had above
this season.
No.
Until this season.
No. They're not going to throw the football enough, plain and simple. They're a running football team. That's what they're going to do. And that is what's going to take a lot of pressure off of said Aaron Rodgers. But that's going to benefit Pat Freiermuth because he's a solid blocking tight end, which is going to put him on the field.
Roman Wilson end arounds. I don't know. The guy's a top 20 receiver. If I drafted him, he's a top 20 receiver.
That's hilarious. You know how many times Arthur Smith calls a running play for a wide receiver?
More now because Roman Wilson's in the
less than 1% of the time every single season he's called plays.
He didn't have Roman. He only had Roman Wilson for 5 snaps last year. So I don't know what to tell you.
And I bet he ran one of them, right? I'm sure he did.
20% of Roman Wilson snaps last year were run plays.
Actually, I don't think Roman Wilson logged a single.
I was going to say, I'm going to look right now. I don't know if he did either. Roman Wilson had.
He did not.
Nope. One game.
But how many of those were run
played,
plays when he was on the field? Though? I'm just saying. Who knows? Those are the top 2 favorites here from this. Other guys mentioned. Ryan likes Ertz, Gesicki, and Chig. The Gesicki caveat is when T. Higgins is hurt.
Yeah, it's about injuries. I say let Josh talk Mason Taylor up before we get out of this one.
Yes, and the last rookie is Mason Taylor, who, by all accounts, we expect to be the starting tight end because Jeremy Ruckert and tight end Stone Smart ain't really. They're not going to steal the show from him.
Yeah, and that's really what it boils down to. I mean, this is what we hammer home, right? Tight ends, we want them to be the first or the second option in the passing game. We recorded our Jets preview, I think it was the end of last week. And, I'm of this mindset that, all right, Fields runs, he's not going to throw the football to Breece Hall. Breece Hall has consistently been a top target earner at the running back position. A little bit more research. Justin Fields the last 2 years has targeted the running back position with 20% of his throws. That's still going to leave a pretty large piece of the pie for Mason Taylor if he's able to win this job, because let's be real, the other wide receivers in this room, Allen Lazard, sucks. Malachi Corley couldn't even carve out a role last season. And by all accounts, he's not doing it this year. They spent a rookie draft pick on Arian Smith, who's one trick pony of 9 routes. Should play well to Fields' arm strength, but not necessarily his accuracy. That's going to leave Mason Taylor in the middle of this field. And we've seen the middle of the field targets with Justin Fields in previous stops do really well. Again, Pat Freiermuth last year, Cole Kmet 2 seasons in Chicago. Mason Taylor setting himself up to be heavily involved in this offense, even if they're only going to throw the football 480 something times. Like, it's not going to be a high volume passing attack, but the high value targets, we know what Garrett Wilson's going to get. Breece Hall probably should still see a good amount of targets. If we see 70 targets to Mason Taylor, depends on how many touchdowns he ends up scoring, but you're going to get some streamable weeks from Mason Taylor. And I think that's really what you're looking for from this group
100%.
Is, can somebody become a streaming option, or is somebody going to see enough volume to where I feel okay not playing the streaming game, but getting the bare minimum out of a starting tight end? That's what we talked about with Hunter Henry, Pat Freiermuth, Zach Ertz. Now it becomes, where are those streaming options? Mason Taylor has that lined up for him because there is next to nothing at the wide receiver position outside of Garrett Wilson.
Anything, Ryan?
No, I mean, it's going to kind of lead us into our next section. I don't like Mason Taylor as much as Josh from a ranking standpoint. I agree as a player and probably the second, but when I targeted this team out because of the low passing volume, Mason Taylor did not make it out inside of my top 20. But what I do, Josh pointed out in his tight end tiers article, Mason Taylor is probably the only rookie he's willing to take a chance on. The difference between Mason Taylor and the other two rookies is the draft capital, which we will get into shortly. And that's where I agree with Josh, is if I'm gambling on a rookie tight end, it sure as hell is Mason Taylor over the other two based on cost.
And that brings us into the top 12, the landmines here. So number 1 is Brock Bowers, undoubtedly. Number 2 is Trey McBride. George Kittle and Sam Laporta, 3-4. Hockenson at 5. Jonnu Smith. First rookie, Tyler Warren at number 7. Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, Evan Ingram rounds out the top 10 with David Njoku and Colston Loveland at 11 and 12. Tyler Warren at 7.
Wow.
Is
a lot of Daniel Jones believers.
I was gonna say, like, you put Warren even with Daniel Jones. Warren at 7. You believe Anthony Richardson doesn't see the field this year.
I mean, you're.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, what did Anthony Richardson do? Not even just to target the tight end, just as a quarterback to make you believe in his passing ability.
We had Trey Daubert on for a show. It may have been the tight end show, but if it wasn't, it was he brought this up in one of our
Trey
shows.
Was on the mock draft show.
And Trey said, everybody loves Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren couldn't get past Theo Johnson last year, like 2 years ago. And this is your generational tight end who had to wait behind Theo Johnson?
Because he takes snaps in different places and he can be Travis Kelce. Okay. It's just, I'm trying to look up the team stats from last year.
I don't pretend to be a college expert. To me, Colston Loveland screams Dalton Kincaid. And it has taken Kincaid so long to succeed. And I just see from how people describe Colston Loveland, it's almost to a T how they were describing Dalton Kincaid. Like, best receiver at the position and yada, yada, yada. Like, Dalton Kincaid is playing with Josh fucking Allen. No offense to Caleb Williams. I love the guy. I'd rather be playing with Josh Allen, and Dalton Kincaid can't pop. And now we're betting on Colston Loveland to pop? Like, I don't know.
I think the biggest difference there, though, Dalton Kincaid not running down the field. Like, his yards per reception in the pros has been abysmal for somebody that is supposedly as athletic as he is. Colston Loveland is a more athletic tight end. He's a better seam route runner. He can catch better as well. Like, Dalton Kincaid's catch percentage through 2 seasons, considering the targets that he has seen, has been god awful. The biggest hurdle with Colston Loveland, you have DJ Moore. You have last year's first-round pick, Rome Odunze. You have this year's second-round pick, Luther Burden. You have a pass-catching running back in DeAndre Swift. You also have, for argument's sake, Cole Kmet, the veteran, right?
So, like,
there's a lot more hurdles with Colston Loveland, which to me makes the tight end 12 argument null and void. Like, why are we doing this? Because, again, what you are looking for with tight ends, they need to be the first or second option in their offense.
I'm doing math.
Yes.
Talking.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know.
Yes. Then Johnson went through, and we saw what he did with Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta took a step back last season because Jamison Williams took a step forward. And unless this offense is consistently throwing the ball 600 plus times, there's just not going to be enough targets to get Colston Loveland up this way unless he's scoring 10 or more touchdowns. And that's why Sam Laporta was the tight end 1 his rookie season, because of touchdowns. Yeah. Those touchdowns took a step back his second year. Sam Laporta took a step back his second year.
Step back his second year.
So, like, we're just over projecting Colston Loveland at this point, in my opinion, unless one of these wide receivers completely shit the bed. And you might need 2 of them to shit the bed.
Yeah, I like DJ Moore and Rome Odunze so much. It's hard for me to even over project these tight ends, and I'm very low on Loveland. Joe.
So I was doing my math on Tyler Warren. So you guys touched on Loveland. Here's my thing on Tyler Warren. I went back, I added all the tight end statistics from last season for the Colts. Here's my math I was doing. If you were to combine the Colts tight ends into one tight end, here are their stats from last season. 39 catches for 467 yards, 2 touchdowns. Fantasy points, if you're just doing a traditional PPR, that is 97.7 points.
That would currently, in my projections, be my tight end 32.
That would be good for tight end 31 last year.
Yeah.
Which was Brenton Strange.
And again, I get it. It's not going to be an apples to apples comparison.
But it's pretty
one
damn
person
close.
is not going to be that. Like, they had quarterback issues. They also had tight end issues. Like, you spend a first round pick on a tight end, you're expecting them to be exponentially better than what you already have.
Yeah.
I just don't see this offense deciding that they're going to not target Michael Pittman, that they're not going to target Josh Downs.
Exactly.
Which is going to put Tyler Warren at best as the third option in this offense.
And they still have draft capital and AD Mitchell.
Isn't going to throw 550 times, maybe not even 500 times.
And if A-Rich is the quarterback, he'll like the odds of
they're going to throw 425 times.
But not even that.
It's like no slice of the pie at that point.
But not even that. The third option is going to be his legs. It's not even going to be.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah.
And then he showed a propensity for Alec Pierce last year. Like, there's just so many things that can go wrong for both of these rookies.
Yeah. Well, the Colston Loveland, he is in a far too crowded room to do.
I get the crowded
anything.
part. I will say that I do have Loveland. He statted out as my tight end 13. And again, it's largely because of he's going to see options. Like, I think I have him at like 83 targets. But I have Burden taking the bigger step back of the two rookies.
Yeah,
like I have him as the third option. So it's Adunze, it's Colston Loveland. You can convince me it goes one way or the other, but honestly, at tight end 13, I'm probably not drafting him.
Yeah,
plain and simple, right?
No,
Tyler Warren stats out as my tight end 17. So like, I'm absolutely not drafting him if his price is tight end 7.
Makes sense.
I can't wrap my head around that we're going back-to-back years, putting an Indianapolis Colts player inside of the top 10 when it is completely unwarranted. The only guy that deserves to be anywhere near the top 10 is Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
That's the only guy.
Yeah.
Because Anthony Richardson doesn't need to use his arm to get him the football. He just has to extend it. There's no air in between.
And still misses it.
And still misses. It's everyone else I could understand and be okay with. Jonnu is the biggest red flag, which Josh, I know that was the vet you trust least. And then same thing to you, Ryan Hockenson. For all intents and purposes, a rookie quarterback. We have no idea who McCarthy's going to look at, who he's going to target.
And Hockenson didn't look great last year. And I understand
not.
He's coming back from an injury, but like he did not look, he was not the first 2 years of Minnesota TJ Hockenson last year.
No, yeah, and I mean, and you look at what Jordan Addison has been able to do in this offense. He's kind of elevated to that second target, right? So like that's going to keep Hockenson as more of the third option. So I think like, you know, instead of the potential for 100 targets that we kind of like with Hockenson in this offense,
not happening.
You don't have that this year. And now you're working in essentially a rookie who didn't play at all his rookie season. The potential there is just much lower. Like you're expecting him at tight end 5 to either have close to 100 targets or be top 3 at the position in touchdowns.
If that's TJ Hawkinson's draft cost, I don't have to worry about it because he will not be on a single one of my fantasy teams.
Here's the thing that I'm slowly realizing. More so than any other position, maybe quarterback because you see Mahomes high. Tight end is the name recognition.
100%.
Because, again, 2 first-round picks in the top 12 at the tight end position when the tight ends are notorious for not having good rookie seasons, unless you're Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
But again, and I get that saying, But over the last 4 years, we've seen rookies do really well. Kyle Pitts, for as much as shit as we give him, had a 1,000-yard rookie season. Sam Laporta was the overall tight end 1 in his rookie season. Brock Bowers, the overall tight end 1 in his rookie season. So, like, people are paying attention to what have you done for me lately with these rookies and saying, well, if those guys can do it, the NFL knows more than I do, so we're
one of these guys is going to pop.
But
Mason Taylor.
And that's the thing. Are we sure that it's going to be Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland?
No,
that's really the biggest point there.
Harold Fannin Jr.
I say Harold Fannon's a great receiver. Mason Taylor's a great receiver, and that's what you want. So,
and it really is. It really is name recognition, and it's less so in between 1 and 12, but the 13 to 20 range is pretty much just all name recognition at that point. Name recognition that's not 30 plus years old.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. So just while it may not be the sexiest pick on planet Earth, Hunter Henry will be available to you.
Yep.
And he will get you a lot of fantasy points.
100%.
You could argue that as much as Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, George Kittle are set it and forget it, you could almost argue in that same sentence that Hunter Henry, Pat Freiermuth are also set it and forget it, but you're not spending anywhere near the draft capital on those.
If you want to get more interesting with Hunter Henry, don't the Pats have a week 14 bye?
They do have a week 14
so
bye.
You can literally set your tight end spot and forget it for 13 weeks with Hunter Henry.
Yes, they do have a week 14 bye. Back-to-back years getting screwed on the bye week. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, as much as those top two guys are, and yes, Bowers and Trey McBride should be scoring more than Hunter Henry. Like that, they're not in the same tier. No. But if we're going back to the strategy of set it and forget it, there's two guys at the end of the draft that fit that bill.
Yeah, you're just not getting you're 6 points below the other two guys.
Yes, exactly. And you can then use that second round pick on a receiver, running back,
and hopefully make up that gap.
Exactly. You make up that gap, ideally pretty largely, because the tight ends don't score as much as the other positions. But just keep that in mind as you go into these drafts, that there is a lot more value late at tight end than there seems to have been in recent years.
Yep. And if you're streaming, I got your back all season long. We do it on the show every Wednesday, and I break it down into shorts every Thursday morning. So,
and that's it for tight ends, folks. That's all she wrote. There's only so many to talk about.
I said we did a good hour on tight ends. This is one of our better shows.
Yeah, we did. And next week, Josh, what are we doing next week?
So next week's we're going to be diving more into draft strategies and roster construction. I toyed around with the idea of doing a mock draft on the show, but we already have two that go on the network. So I thought what we could potentially do is kind of do a mock draft off air and then work with some of our writing team to kind of like, all right, you guys do this strategy, you do this strategy. So that way we can kind of like break down teams and rounds and talk about what we're looking at while we're drafting, how we can sort of pivot when the team above us does X and we then turn around and do Y. Some of the different aspects that we can start to look for early in June to prepare for July and August when we're doing our drafts, or if you're Joe, September weekend.
That's what it should be. That's the last year that I didn't do that was the year Jordy Nelson tore his ACL the second week of August, and I drafted that weekend before.
Same thing happened to my little brother.
Yep. And I said, I will never.
And that was his stance after that as well.
I will never be drafting again until after the final cuts are made. I will never be drafting again. There's no reason to.
Yeah,
there's zero reason to.
What
are you doing on Labor Day at 8 p.m.? Be real with me. Like, what are you doing?
Me
watching college football. Duh.
Yeah. So watch college football and draft your freaking fantasy football team.
I say I do so many leagues that I will be drafting one, if not two, fantasy football teams during that period of time.
And that's fine. So will I. Like that, and that's great. But like my friends are like, "Oh, Labor Day weekend." I'm like, "Tell me what you're doing on Monday at 8 p.m."
Yeah, stop
you
making
dinks.
excuses.
Shut up, you idiots. God. Yes, please wait. Just the odds are very slim, but there will be 1 to 2 guys that will suffer something bad, whether it be direct or indirect to somebody that you draft.
I will say, I feel like in recent years,
Hasn't happened.
we've had less of the
I agree.
heartbreaking season-ending injury in that like last couple of weeks of spring, and a lot of it is just because teams aren't practicing the way they used to. Like the Players Association is.
I was thinking
down training camp and the number of preseason games and all this stuff. So
I was thinking after what happened last year, I'll probably start doing my fantasy drafts the Tuesday after the first Monday Night Football game so that Christian McCaffrey can never do what he did to me last year.
You can always find an excuse not to draft.
That's
really
kind of the joke I was
it.
making there is
Yeah.
I'm an early drafter. I'm the opposite of Joe because injuries are going to happen. If you give me a month, I can figure out how I'm going to replace that guy. So,
nope. I'd rather figure out after they die in week 1. That's what I would rather.
I don't know, Joe. Didn't you take a CMC drafted team into the playoffs?
To the playoffs, Joe?
Yeah, because I'm a good drafter. I don't know what you with like.
Just saying.
Well, when you get Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Joe
Exactly.
Mixon, Brock Bowers. Actually,
I
didn't get Bowers in that.
All
draft.
of which who did not get hurt in the preseason.
Yes, but all of which absolutely balled
If you drafted up in
out.
August, you still would have been great. Let's get out of this show. We got 2 more to do.
Listen, hey, you're the one that kept bringing it up. I was about to read off my team. All right, boys, that's all she wrote. Tight ends. We'll be back next week. For Josh, Ryan, myself, you can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL, clubfantasyffl.com. Always remember, defense wins championships. Offense wins fantasy football. We will see you next